Yes, hello. I think that every speaker on this stage and on the stages in other rooms will begin their presentation by saying that it's nice to be actually physically on the stage, and I share their feelings, and I share the reasons why they were also absent from stage because of the pandemics. But I also have another reason why I was away from speaking. In the end of 2019, I got involved in a project that left no time, no energy, no bandwidth for anything other than work, for any speaking engagements, in person and otherwise. So now this project was so, well, interesting and so challenging that after all this is over, after the pandemic also is over, I got quite a lot of invitations to speak about this one. And this conference is one of those events. So let me start. I'm head of product in Diggecard. We are a software as a service company. We work with gift cards, and we are based in Norway. In the end of 2019, we acquired another company that works with gift cards, a company based in the UK. And this acquisition was a bit unusual in several ways. So the main interesting thing about the acquisition was that the company that we bought was considerably bigger than us. Just before the acquisition, our turnover was around 100,000 euros, while theirs was around 30 million euros. So yes, in terms of turnover, they were 300 times bigger than us. It's a bit unusual. Another not very common thing about this acquisition was that the software systems that were used for operations of this company were not part of the deal. So this company had hundreds of customers that were selling and buying gift cards, and the operations were supported by several software systems. And these software systems were to be switched off, meaning that after the acquisition, we needed to take all these customers over to our own systems. Well, we were smaller than them. So as you may assume, we did not have everything. So what we needed was to build a substitution. We needed to replace these systems, partially using what we had and partially building it from scratch. So this way or another, we needed to build a full replacement of the software that was used for operations of this acquired company. And this is not all. As I said, that acquired company had many customers, and relationships with these customers were very important for the seller. So important that the mandatory requirement for the acquisition was that the migration from one system to another should be totally invisible for the customers. So without any interruption in the service and without any additional downtime. Well, there were many competitors, there were several competitors that wanted to acquire this company, and they were bigger than us, and they had partially or fully the systems that were needed, but they could not guarantee no interruption in the service. Probably they were reasonable, and we were brave. So we declared that we can do it, and we convinced the seller that we could do it. So the contract was ours. Another thing, as I said, the systems were to be switched off, and there was a specific date where these systems would be switched off, and it was our deadline, which was in this case really a deadline. And it was in less than a year after the acquisition, which is really tight for the systems of this size and this complexity. So we had both a very dead and very tight deadline. And this is not all. The existing solutions were far from optimal. So there were several software systems that were used, but they required a lot of manual work from the operations. They were not integrated with each other. So when building the replacement, we could not just copy what was there before. We could not rely on seeing what is there before and just doing the same thing. We needed to build a different system. system that would be considerably more efficient. So this is our full list of requirements for this replacement project, for this product that the solution that we needed to build. And well, this case study is about what happened next, how we dealt with this. It will not be an ideal case study. They say that ideal case studies are about failures. This is not a failure story. So ours is a success story. But I came here not just to brag about our achievements, but I came here to share our experience, because I believe that there is a lot in our experience which you who work with the design and development of software products can use in order to make your stories success stories. We did not succeed just because of hard work or luck that were mentioned in the keynote, talking about luck, end of 2019. So yes, we were all soon faced the pandemics and lockdown. And in our particular case, the collaboration, in-person collaboration, would have been really helpful, because we are based in Norway. We bought a company based in UK. And so absence of collaboration was especially difficult for us. Also, during the first year after the lockdown, our turnover increased from 30 million euros that I mentioned now to 50 million euros, that it's in the title of my presentation. We work with gift cards. And gift cards, especially digital gift cards, became really important under the lockdown. We were involved in several governmental programs, and we were helping to businesses stay afloat and for people to get some kind of support. So our turnover increased, which was very good for the company, but which was a bit more difficult for us who were migrating the systems. And still we managed. And we managed because as a team, we have a set of techniques and methodologies that we apply and that are very helpful in this particular case with our particular requirements. And when talking through what we did, I will focus on these techniques and methodologies, mostly covering my side. I'm a product designer, but I will also mention the rest of the perspectives from it, which I cannot claim ownership at, but still I will mention it to give the full overview. So this is what we had. We needed to build something with these requirements, a new solution, a new product. The first question that seems to be logical when you're beginning to build a new product is asking yourself what this new product needs to be, right? No, this is the wrong question. The right question is what this new product needs to do. The main principle in the design approach that I'm using is describing products, solutions, systems that I'm designing or just looking at, not as parts it consists of or features it has, but by tasks, by the activities that this product allows people to do. So I needed to understand what this new product needs to do. And the answer to this particular replacement project is quite straightforward. The new product needed to do exactly the same as the old system did. So the first stage in our work was to analyze what the existing solution is doing. There are two quite popular concepts in UX design, which probably many of you have heard about. It's personas and jobs to be done. Personas are fictitious characters that are used to describe the users of the system, the characteristics of these users that are important for that particular system are listed and documented, and the differences between personas are also documented. Quite fundamental approach. Another approach is jobs to be done. It focuses more on things that the system enables. It doesn't care about the users, it cares about the activities that are possible in the system. What I'm using is a combination of the two. So kind of jobs to be done by personas. So I describe the system by what this system allows to do for groups of users. So I need to know the people who are using the system, and I need to understand what they do in the system. Now, this sounds a bit fundamental, and considering that we had less than 1 year in front of us, probably we did not do a full-blown user research. Not because we didn't have time, but also because this is not the way we think is, I think, is necessary. The level of details of both description of people and of their activities was increasing as we were progressing through our project. So in the initial stage, we started by very high level description of the people, of the groups of users in the system, and high-level description in their tasks. We did not go deep in the first iteration. It was really very high. So for us, it was the people were the customers, groups of personas, groups of users were the customers that were placing the orders, and there were operations or admins who were supporting these orders. And not more detailed than that in the initial stage. And also their tasks were described on, again, high level. What did the customers do? They needed to place the order, receive the order, view order history, pay for the order, etc. Operations, they needed to receive the order, ship it, and so on. So the initial analysis, the result of the initial analysis was the description of the system as a high-level to-do list for high-level groups of users. Now, we needed to define the replacement strategy, how to approach this replacement product. There were several alternatives in front of us. One of them was to build the new system the way we need to do, and then to migrate the customers over, using some time on that. We decided not to go this way. There was quite a lot of money involved in our operations. And in case something went wrong, the financial consequences would be very difficult. And also reputational damage can be quite hard. But also, as I mentioned earlier, the downtime that we were allowed to have was considerably shorter than this one-time migration could have required. So based on all these reasons, we decided not to go this way, not to build the system in one go. The decision was to shift the customers to the new systems gradually. Not only build the product incrementally, but also to replace the old one incrementally, piece by piece. So build something new and immediately start using this in the operations. So changing winds on the fly. Having selected the approach, we needed to answer one last question: what to begin with, what to build first. So we had a list of activities that are possible for the users, which of them to start with. So how do you, if you have a system, which end do you start with? How do you replace the system? What approach to use? So let me describe this on a slightly simpler example than our gift card solution. Let's look at the train service, Eurostar train. It takes people from Paris to London. So the train takes people from one place to another. There is a ticket service that lets people book their travel. There is security that checks that everything is safe there. Border control checks that people have proper documents. Catering allows us to buy some food, and so on. So there are many services that are involved in this system. Now, let's ask ourselves a question. What this train system was built for? For catering to feed people? Probably not. For border control to check passports? Definitely no. It was built for taking people from Paris to London and back. This is the core activity, the main activity of the whole system. And the others are supplementary. They either help this main one to happen, ticket service allows people to book the train, it helps this thing to happen, makes it possible, or adds additional value. Catering adds more value to the service. It's better when you're able to buy some food on the way, but it's not absolutely mandatory. You can just take sandwiches with you or just be hungry. So in every system, there is this core activity and supplementary activities. And if you need to replace the whole thing, and if you have time limitations, what would you start with? you probably would not start with catering. You would start with replacing the train service. You would first have to build a substitution for the system that takes people from Paris to London. So this is exactly what we did in our system. We found our core activity. Our core activity is allowing customers to place and receive orders. So the whole thing was built for this core activity. To be more precise, the system allowed several types of customers place several types of orders for several types of gift cards and receive it via one of several delivery methods. So it was more complex than just one core. Do we need to build all these variations in our first iteration? Probably not. In the first iteration, we needed to build the core flow, but we needed to build the end-to-end core flow. It wouldn't help just to replace the order placing piece or the delivery piece. We needed to allow end-to-end flow to happen. We needed to find the smallest version of the end-to-end flow through the system. We needed to allow one type of customer, the simplest one for us, to place one type of orders, again, preferably simplest for us, for one gift card type and deliver it via one delivery method. So we needed to look at our system and find this particular combination that would be the smallest end-to-end flow for us. So this is how we formulated the first release. We formulated release as a goal. We needed to allow this type of customer to place this type of order for this type of gift card and so on. This was our formulation of the first release. Then we looked at our list of activities and saw which of them are mandatory for particularly this flow to happen. So out of all our big list, we picked several pieces and put them in a separate sub-list, and these were the activities we needed to replace in our first iteration. And then we built this software that was needed for these activities, tested it, put it into use, and then decided what to build next. So each next iteration, so the first iteration and each next iterations, were described by the same formula. We need to make system allow X to do Y. We need to allow, let's say, other type of customers to place orders, or we want them to be able to order other types of gift cards, not only digital gift cards, but also physical gift cards. And then these new goals dictated which other activities needs to be possible. For example, for the customers to be able to place physical orders, what is needed? Operations need to be able to ship them. So this activity becomes the focus for the next release that we have decided for ourselves. So, and so on. So when we were deciding which goal to target, the activities that are needed to make this goal happen became our focus. So summarizing our prioritization process. We were setting the goal. We need to make the system allow X to do Y, and out of the list of activities, we picked the necessary ones and then built the software that enabled them. And then set the new goal and so on until all types of customers were able to place all types of orders, etc., in our core flow. And this was our MVP of the replacement system. Okay, we have covered the analysis, we have covered the prioritization. Now, how do we do the replacement itself? So let's say, yes, we have selected the next goal. The next goal is to allow the operations to allow the customers to place physical orders. And the activity we're looking at is sending physical gift card orders that contain physical gift cards. Right. So this level of description, we need the operations to send physical gift cards, was quite good for in the beginning. It was good enough when we were doing the analysis, initial analysis. It was good enough when we were doing the prioritization, but it doesn't help much when we are actually replacing this thing. Operations need to ship orders. It's not very descriptive. It's not detailed enough. So what we need to do is to go deeper to understand what actually is happening inside this one activity we are looking at. So when you need to analyze it deeper. So when you ask people what they're doing, we needed to look at this and understand what people are doing. And when you ask people about what are you doing here, on a very high level, they're usually able to abstract. I receive payment, I receive orders, I ship orders, etc. But when you go deeper and when you ask how exactly you do this, then most often people flip to showing very explicit steps. So for our physical gift cards, it looked like this. They could describe it like, I log in a portal, this portal. I select this menu item. I select, or I check all check boxes. I press this button, so and so on. So they were showing me explicit steps. That is how people describe what to do normally. And my analysis started with putting these explicit steps as boxes, one after another. I needed to know which steps are happening in which order when they're doing this. And by this, I documented all steps in this flow and all the steps in each unique flow that are involved in this particular activity. I needed to document all of them because when I will be replacing the whole system, I will have to make all these flows possible. I cannot just exclude some of them. So I needed to document all of them. And the only way I can document it on this stage is as explicit steps, because people are showing explicit steps. But how much do these explicit steps help us to replace the system? Will I be making the same portals, the same menu items, the same checkboxes? Probably not. I need to, in order to be able to replace this, I need to understand not which buttons users are pressing, but what is happening on a more abstract level. I need to understand not how people are doing things, but what they're trying to achieve. I need to abstract from implementations to tasks. Let me explain this concept of implementations and tasks slightly deeper. So let's imagine 19th century. A lady goes to her writing desk, takes a sheet of paper, a quill, an ink jar, and writes something like, "Dear so-and-so, I'm having a small reception next Saturday at 6 in the evening, and I will be honored if you visit me." Then she rings a bell. A servant arrives. She hands this piece of paper to the servant. Servant rides to the other part of the city and then rides back and hands the reply to his master. And she reads, "Dear so-and-so, I'll be happy to come." And she understands that this friend is coming. Now, fast forward some years, it's 21st century now. The great and few more greats granddaughter of this lady takes her smartphone, opens a messenger, creates a group chat, adds some friends to her group chat, and writes, "Hello everyone, let's meet next Saturday at 6. I'm having a birthday party." She taps a post and the message goes. And her friends get notification, read the message, double taps it, and then she gets a notification that, yes, this friend reacted like this, and understands that this friend is coming. So we have two very different flows. People are doing different things, they're using different technology, it takes different amount of time. Looks very different, right? But if we abstract from how they're doing things to what they're trying to achieve, that on a certain level of abstraction, we'll see that they're actually doing the same thing. They're first communicating to their friends that they're having a birthday party, and then they are receiving feedback about who is coming. So sitting down at a desk and writing a letter or creating a group chat are implementations, how they do something. And communicating to friends that they have a birthday party is tasks, what they're trying to achieve. So, in order to move forward with my design and analysis process, I needed to understand, to abstract from implementations to tasks, to understand what people are actually trying to achieve in each step. And looking at my flow of sending physical gift cards, I saw that, all right, 3 first steps are actually people are trying to select orders that they need to dispatch by clicking these things. And then they print paperwork that is needed for these orders, and so on. So like this, I analyzed the whole flow, abstracting from how people were doing things to what they were trying to achieve. And I want to point out 2 characteristics of these task descriptions. So first, these task descriptions are solution agnostic. It is very important not to mention buttons, interface elements, not to mention how people are doing things, but just writing down what exactly people are doing. And second, they are user-centered. What people think they are doing. Slightly formalized version, but still. So at the end of this, abstraction, I needed to have processes rewritten as end-to-end flows of tasks instead of flows of implementations. Now, why do I do this? It's kind of deep analysis. Why do I need this? First, it helps me to just understand what is actually going on. Why, what they're doing and why. Not pressing buttons, but what they're trying to achieve. Also, description of what is happening in the system as I said, will be the foundation of the design work, right? And I will most likely not make them press the same buttons or open the same portals. I will not be copying what is there before. I will be suggesting another implementation to the same tasks. People will not be using the same interface elements. They will be doing something else, but they will have to be able to complete the same tasks. So this abstraction from buttons and menu items allows us to suggest other implementations of the same tasks. Another reason, in our particular case, I had existing solutions, that parts of the software that we're using the same parts of the work. But in other projects, you may have third-party software that can be using some part of things that you want to do. And these existing solutions or third-party solutions will not have the same implementation. They may have different implementation from the one that you are replacing. And in order to see where exactly you can use these other existing solutions, you have to understand what exactly people are doing, not what buttons they're pressing. There was another way this abstraction from implementations to tasks benefited us. When you're looking at these flows written as explicit steps, you see that they are very different. Second one is I log in another portal, I export yesterday's orders to Excel, I remove orders from with failed payment, etc. The explicit steps are very different from the ones in the first flow. But when I do this abstraction, I see that actually these steps, 3 steps in the second flow, are also selecting the orders that need to be dispatched. And then I'm trying to print the paperwork. And analyzing like this, I saw that actually in a different ways, but people were very often doing the same thing. In fact, in our system, there were half a dozen individual ways how people were sending out orders with physical gift cards. There were several order types, there were several systems that used for different brands. But after abstraction, I saw that 4 of them were exact copy of each other on the task level, not on the implementation level. And 2 were variations of the same. And I was able to replace 6 flows with 1, with 2 variations. And they fitted all these 6 flows. So I was able to merge several flows into one, which was obviously a big simplification for the users that were using the system and a big simplification for us who were building it. So as a result of this stage, I needed to have processes described as the end-to-end flows of tasks that people are doing in the system. And this becomes the foundation of the design work. So having these laws, I needed to design the solution that will be different from the existing one, the one that I want to have. And the main principles of how we do this are the following. First, I manipulated some tasks on this boxes level. I removed some of them. I tried to see if they can be reordered to make people's work more simple. If I can substitute several steps with one. In our case, originally there were several systems that people were using, and there were many tasks and many steps needed in order to complete one particular process. And we were building one system, so we were able to exclude a lot of manual steps by making the data being automatically filled or automatically transferred. So I was able to simplify the whole thing on a task level. But the biggest optimization was when we were able to suggest different implementations to the same tasks. It can be different implementation for one individual step. For example, I needed to add a gift card number somewhere. And the existing solutions, people were typing this 16-digit number. I can offer scanning, right? And it will be slightly easier for the user, slightly more optimal. In our birthday example, these ladies were using a quill and an ink jar. I could try and replace it with a ball pen. It will be slightly easier for the user to do these tasks. Another alternative, we were able to abstract slightly more and try to substitute several steps with something totally different. Then, for example, calling a server and then sending them to the other part of the city can be substituted by post. It will not be simplification from the speed perspective, but it will allow more people to have access to the same process, those who do not have servants. So the process can become more optimal from the cost perspective or accessibility perspective. So this can be done on several steps level. But we can also try to substitute the whole thing, rethink the whole concept. Suggest not an evolutionary, but a revolutionary change. And then we can come up with an idea of a group chat. To do this, we have to abstract even more to higher level goals. Okay, I need to communicate to my friends that I'm having a birthday party. How can I do this? Given that we have this technology, given that we live in these times. And then the group chat can come up. So then something radically different, something totally different can appear. And yes, for that, you need to abstract higher. What we need to understand is which level of change we are ready to suggest in our particular circumstances. Evolution or revolution. This level of change depends on several things. It depends on the amount of time and effort that we are ready to invest. Quite often, even though not always, more fundamental, more revolutionary changes require more work. But they also require deeper changes in the circumstances of the use. It would not help to suggest group chats in the 19th century. Technology, people, circumstances were not ready for that. But it would help to suggest a ball pen instead of quills and ink jars. And it was the suitable level of change back then. So one of the main considerations for suggesting bigger or smaller changes is a different in the circumstances that you have, different in technologies that are available for you. Also, the size of the proposed change affects the size of the corresponding release, how big chunks of things you can replace in one go. And we needed to be sometimes, in our case, we needed to be rather conservative on this, from this perspective, and to prioritize evolutionary changes to revolutionary ones. This has to be considered too. The approach that I was using, finding the implementations, was always look for the minimum, or rather two minimums. Least possible work for the user, but at the same time, least possible amount of development. And as you may guess, these two things sometimes contradict each other, or most often contradict each other. With our gift card number example, they can type or they can scan. Typing is easier to implement. Scanning is easier for the user. So in our circumstances, I was we needed to find a compromise, but sometimes we needed to go for the shortest implementation case. But When designing this, I could plan for future, that some time later, when we're able to come back and round the corners, we would be able to also add scanning. So I was designing for future, but choosing the shortest solution from implementation perspective first, in the first iteration. I described the suggested solutions as sketches, as flow of sketches, add sketches to the interfaces, and it is intentionally low fidelity sketches. So not something nice and beautiful, not finished and beautiful mock-ups. It has to be clear that a button is a button and a form is a form, but not more refined than this. And this is for a reason, and this is important. Low fidelity sketches allow you to concentrate on what matters. I don't want to start discussing the colors of buttons. I don't want to start discussing rounded corners or fonts. I don't want people to argue about this. I don't want people to see this and think about it at all. I want them to focus on what matters. That's why only what matters is on the screen at this stage. Also, I don't want to mislead people by the false impression of how well I have thought everything through. When all details are in place, when you're looking at a nice, finished and polished mock-up, you think that your brain is working like this. You think that the thinking of the author of these mock-ups is also polished and finished. And at this stage, it's not the case. I have a high-level overview of what is happening. I've not thought everything through, and I don't want to mislead people. Also, rough sketches encourage the audience to give honest feedback. If it's obvious that I have not invested much time in drawing this, you'll be able to suggest me something that will make me redraw the whole thing, or maybe do it several times. And this is exactly what I want. I want people to suggest other solutions, to look at it critically. I don't want to sell my design. I want discussion, not admiration. And this is exactly what I have. I have discussion after this step. So the next thing that happens is a discussion with people. And people who are there is, for me, it's the key. I need to have a certain types of people during this walkthrough. I need someone from the product side, a product owner or another person who understands the product well enough, and also who has authority to make decisions. It doesn't help to just discuss things internally. We need to have someone with an authority to make decisions. The key participants are people from technical side, technical architect or people representing each platform. I need to know. I need to have an opinion from those who know this, how difficult it is to implement what I want. Or if there are other ways to make it slightly more difficult for users, but much more easy for developers. Also, very often technical people are able to suggest solutions that us designers are not aware of. Also, we need a domain and user side. We need domain experts, and especially if domain is rather specific, the one that we are not usually working in. And the user side, in our case, domain and user were quite close. We just asked people, let's say from operations, to walk through the whole thing with us. And I got the feedback, all the feedback that I needed, because they knew this thing. But it's important to have people who have good understanding of these systems in this walkthrough. So these participants I must have in these walkthroughs. And what we do, we validate our vision. We see if what we are suggesting is true from product perspective, doable from technical perspective, and correct from domain and user perspective. We correct this flow of sketches. Almost never do I go out of these discussions with unchanged sketches. Small or big changes are always there, sometimes very considerable ones. We listen to other opinion, we see where we have suggested something wrong and what can be done better. But the main thing, the most important thing that happens here is that we get a shared understanding of what we are actually building. Before this joint walkthrough, each of us have our own vision, our own perspective on it. We are talking about the same thing, but our visions are slightly or not so slightly different from each other. By walking through explicitly written, explicitly shown things, we put our visions on the table and we see where we differ. We then correct our visions, and then as a result, we have a real shared understanding of it all. After such discussions, I go back, refine my sketches, refine my ideas, we discuss again. So it's an iterative process. And after everyone agrees on the flow, then the UI designer goes and draws the beautiful mock-ups and developers start their work. And then we start planning the next iteration. And this continued until the whole system was replaced. So summarizing what I have talked about now, I want to go back to the goals that we had in the beginning and see how the approach that I have shown helped to achieve these goals. We needed to build a full replacement. We needed to build a complete solution without holes and an end-to-end solution. And we did build a complete solution. The description of what needs to be done as a flow of tasks helped us in this. If a suggested replacement allowed the user to do the same tasks, then I could be sure that there were no holes in this solution. If they can, if all tasks were possible to be accomplished, that I knew that solution is complete. If it started and ended exactly where the old solution did, then I knew that when I replace it, it will work, regardless of the fact that it looks different, it behaves different, people are using different screens, different elements, and are doing different things. I was able to be sure that when we are replacing this thing, it is going to work. Having decided to start replacing with the core and gradually adding more functionality allowed us to not to have additional downtime. Also, in order to have this core in place, we needed to define all basic concepts. We needed to define all the data structure of the order, of the customer, how we look at this. Let's say if one organization, if different departments of one organization are buying gift cards from us, let's say HR departments for some reward program and marketing department for some incentives. Do we treat them as one customer, two customers, or two hierarchical elements of one? So how we do this? All these small details, they seem to be unimportant, but they are very valuable, and all of them are needed before you start building this fundamental core. Also, we had this concept defined in the existing system, which we were not sure was optimal, and also we had them defined in our system, which didn't fit. Not everywhere these concepts were defined the same way. So they were different, and we needed to understand how to adjust them so that they fill both worlds, the existing one and our one. And because of having to define all these fundamental things before building the first core product, we were able to test them on this first core product. And we did. And we saw where things did not work the way we wanted. We copied one definition from the old system, started using this, and saw that if we add more hierarchical elements to it, then it will be easier for us, and the system will work better and have more order in the system. And we were able to change it while already having a live customer in it. And we were able to change it because the solution was so small. So if we changed it when the whole system or all customers were already using it, it would be very difficult, maybe impossible, if we discovered it too late. So this allowed us to make necessary changes, building the core, allowed us to make necessary changes without requiring additional downtime for these changes. So we were able not to interrupt the service for these corrections. We were able to meet tight deadlines because we were able to build the minimal product. It was minimal when we were designing it. I was able to find minimal solutions that I showed you before, but I was also able not to allow MVP to grow. It's a common problem. Sometime along the way, people always come with new great suggestions. They want to have something that they think is absolutely necessary for their product, but what we can do is we can see if this new wonderful suggestion makes people, the users of the system, complete their task. We have a list of tasks explicitly written, and we see your wonderful suggestion and see how much it is necessary. Is it mandatory to complete this task? If not, that we have a good argument to say no and not to allow this MVP to grow. So we're able to not shift our deadlines because of the growing minimum solution. And yes, the eventual product was much more optimal because we were not copying things. We were always able to suggest the optimal alternatives, and we're looking from the user perspective and trying to see how they can complete the task easier for them, so to help them work more efficiently. And the systems that we have built are considerably more efficient than the existing ones. So yes, we did it. And if you have questions, I'm ready to answer it now or after the presentation is over. Thank you. Do you have questions? Well, you can find me later in the halls too. Thank you very much.